it's August 12th, 2022. My name is Justin Young, and you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. With me this week is OJ Duncan, Ryan Friels, and... Wait, OJ, who is that across the table here?
Hey, leave my controller alone. Stop updating it.
We have Alicia Utek. Alicia, welcome back.
Guess who's back? Back again. I am so happy to be back. You know, I've been out of town for like a month for mental health reasons, and then while I was out of town with family physical health started happening, so it was a whole thing, but I am so happy to be back. I missed you guys.
Aw.
We missed you too. I mean, look, without you here, we had to pick on Ryan and Waluigi because we didn't have you and Sonic to pick on. So, like, we need you so it doesn't feel like we're just ganging up on Ryan all the time.
Oh, but ganging up on me is fine.
Well,
I see how it is.
We can split it between the two of you. It balances better that way. So we don't feel as bad. I mean, at this point, we all feel a little bad of making fun of Final Fantasy Origins.
I don't feel bad making fun of it.
I was say, do we feel bad?
I think this
Chaos lives rent-free in my brain.
I think this calls for a Waluigi Sonic team up.
At the
Forget
Olympics.
Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. It's Waluigi and Sonic now.
What big international event would the two of them crash? Like, is it going to be Eurovision, like the singing contest?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, we had Sonic Underground, so we know Sonic can sing. Waluigi's got the character and the look. I think we need Waluigi and Sonic at Eurovision.
What does Waluigi sing? Is he like emo?
Oh my god. I don't want to say that he is, but I have no counter arguments for that.
Now I'm just picturing him in the I Write Sins Not Tragedies video.
Well, how's everyone been? It's been about 3 weeks since our last podcast. People have been in and out of town and everything. We couldn't all get in at the same time. So how have you all been?
I'm feeling a lot better. Like I said, it was a rough month, but things are looking up, ready to get back into the swing of things. It's not that time of the summer where I'm exhausted.
Great, because next week we start in with back to school meetings and everything. So.
Let's go! I'm excited.
So for me, it's that time of the summer because I'm the assistant to the introductory course director, which means that I'm helping put together orientation for the new grad students, which is next week. So I've been working on that a lot. So it's that time of the summer for me.
And how's that going?
Pretty good. I'm very, very tired though.
That makes sense. Like any big project like that is fairly exhausting.
Yeah.
And I just got out of that point in the summer because I just got done with like grading like for a summer semester class and stuff. So kind of interesting how we're all at different phases of that. Like it's not that time. It is that time. It was that time, and now I'm recovering.
Yeah.
I do relate. We were teaching the same summer class, but I'm just so thrilled to be done with it. I'm like,
And turn around, and are you teaching that this fall?
Nope, I'm actually teaching a performance class this fall.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Great. I think that helps. So you're not just rolling right back into teaching the same class again. That can get a little exhausting.
For sure.
So, all right. Well, we have a lot of news to get into, so let's just jump right into that. So one of the first things, Backbone. Backbone makes the sort of snap-on controllers for your phone. So, like, if you want to have an analog stick and actual physical buttons for your phone to play games on it, they have teamed up with PlayStation to make the PlayStation Backbone 1. I've actually heard this called a few different names. There's like a longer name that's like the Backbone 1 Sony PlayStation Edition and different names. But it's the PlayStation Backbone 1, and this is styled like a sort of PS5 DualSense controller, except the analog sticks are not symmetrical. They're asymmetrical in the way that, you know, the Xbox or Switch controllers are. But, you know, it comes with the PlayStation branding and everything, and it's yeah, I guess if you want that, I don't know what's really that different about it. It is selling for $100. Do any of you use anything like this to play games on your phone?
No.
I've literally never heard of this in my life.
Yeah, I've never used it, but if it lasts longer than a regular PS5 controller, I might be worth $100.
But could you use it with an actual PS5, or can you only use it with games on your phone?
I think it's only designed for use with the phone, but I'm pretty sure it connects via Bluetooth, so maybe it would work with a PlayStation, but it's two separate pieces, right? So it's almost like Switch Joy-Cons, and, you know, they're
Oh, I
supposed
can't wait to start updating it.
So you're supposed to attach one side each to your phone, and so that your phone basically becomes a Switch, right? And has the controller snapped to the side. My understanding is that these do not work with any sort of cases on your phone. So if you have a case on your phone, you'd have to take that off in order to use this. That right there immediately takes me out of any interest of using this. Plus, I would not want to carry it around like this in my pocket all the time. So that takes me out of using something like this. So I think it's neat, you know, for, I guess, young kids in school who are really into playing games on their phone. I know a lot of young kids play Call of Duty and Fortnite and stuff on their phone. I would want a controller with that. I think they're very good with the touch screen. But, you know, if you're going to do something like that, I think if you're going to use streaming, so something like the Xbox game streaming or even the PlayStation game streaming, you can do that through your phone. You could use this. That certainly makes a lot more sense to have something like this than using the touch screen controls, because those games are designed around having a physical controller. So, anyways, you know, kind of interesting.
I just think that's a gross name. Like, although it could be redeemed if you give it like some H.R. Geiger design, like make it look like some alien-esque like spinal cord is attached to the phone, and
Or a Mortal Kombat themed one with Sub-Zero.
oh, nice. I like that.
Where the back of it is a spine.
Yeah.
He's pulled it out. Yeah. Okay.
Toasty.
Let's see. This has been one of my favorite stories of the summer in video games. Near Automata, a user going by the name of, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Sad Futago?
Yeah, Sad Futago is my guess. Had posted on Reddit that they had found a secret area in Near Automata. So this is a 6-year-old game at this point. And it's a game that is full of a lot of secrets. If you've never played it, without spoiling anything, it's a game you have to play through multiple times to get to the final real ending. And it really goes some unique places as it gets to those endings and everything. So the idea that there are hidden things still in this game, just within the last year, I think people found something new in the game. So that's not that bizarre or weird. What was weird is he said, I found this area, it's a door, I go through the door, and it eventually is this long hallway, and it goes to this church. And people were like, well, that sounds really bizarre and weird. And so then he actually came back and posted a video which showed this, and it was just a blank wall that he walked up to, and a door opened up, and he goes in, and he goes into this hallway that's sort of twisting and winding, and he walks to the end of it and walks into this church. And then there's like a sort of blobby mess in that church that he can fight and attack and everything. And several of these videos were put out. What was weird about it, right? Like immediately some people were like, well, this has to be like, let's see if we can replicate this. They could not. People assumed it was a hoax. But the people who are currently into the modding scene of this game said, we can't mod anything like this. We can mod things like taking things from one part of the game and rearranging them, but we can't create these entirely new areas, my understanding is what the modders were saying, in the way that's been done in this. Like nobody is that advanced yet with this particular game. So people thought there was this completely hidden new area in the game. There was ideas that this might be viral marketing for the announcement of a sequel. It's been long enough at this point. Feels like they could be producing a sequel. And come to find out, this all was a hoax, that he really did figure out how to mod and made this new area and everything. But for about 2 weeks, this was like the biggest story, I feel like, on video game Twitter. People were obsessed with this. The footage looked really weird and bizarre in the like sort of best way you can imagine for something like this. And it just made me like sort of think about, is so much of video games now are spoiled very quickly online, and people data mine into these games and they find hidden things. And we have another story here we'll get to in a second, about another sort of long lost secret that somebody found. But we don't have things like this. We don't have these sort of like urban legends. And that's the way this felt like. It felt like somebody on the schoolyard telling you they got to the Minus world in Super Mario Brothers, and you were like, no way, that doesn't exist. And
like Mew is hidden under the truck.
Yeah, right. And, you know, like all that sort of stuff before the internet was so common, and, you know, and it was so easy to debunk a lot of this stuff. And, you know, before we had YouTube and Twitch and everything where people could actually physically show it happening. It was really kind of a lot of fun. It's disappointing that it was a hoax, because it would have been like one of the best kept secrets ever in a video game. But I did think it was worth relaying that story and everything, because it's been really cool to follow. We talked about this right before we went on air. MGM has lost the rights to Tomb Raider to make any more films. So they made the most recent film, which was based on the Tomb Raider reboot. So the sort of survivalist version of Lara Croft that kicked off this most recent trilogy of video games. So Alicia Vikander, who played Lara Croft in that film, is theoretically out as playing Lara Croft. And she's, you know, no longer under contract or anything. So whoever buys up the rights this time, you know, will most likely recast and get somebody new in for that role. Ryan, you said you really liked the last film.
I mean, it wasn't like a great film, but I'd probably put it like but like at the same level I'd put like maybe like one of Marvel's more okay movies. Not bad, but not great. But there were things I certainly liked about it, and the best thing about it, I think, was her. I thought she did an awesome job in that, and she's an actress I'd like to see more of. And other things, she's in one of my favorite sci-fi films, Ex Machina. So it just kind of sad. Like I thought they could have had a really good thing going there. I'm not saying the next person that plays Lara Croft can't be good, that you can't find another awesome person to play it. But kind of like, you know, missing out on a third Andrew Garfield film. Like you had somebody who was doing a good job, and you're not gonna get to see much more of that, it sounds like.
How would you rank this film on the Sonic the Hedgehog scale? So compared to Sonic 1 and 2, the films, where does this film rank?
This is my shame. I still need to see those movies.
Oh, you haven't? I thought you had seen the Sonic films.
I've been meaning to. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're going to do a movie night, and we'll report back.
You're going to watch the Sonic films?
Yes.
And Tomb Raider. Have you seen Tomb Raider?
I've not seen Tomb Raider.
Okay,
I was never really into that series.
So you have to watch all three, and then you two come up with your rankings and everything. Siskel and Ebert style.
Just us?
And then,
I think this is a whole podcast event.
I've already seen all three of them.
I don't care.
I've already suffered.
And we have to throw in Super Mario Brothers also.
Nobody deserves that.
I think that film is a treasure in its own right. Is it good? God, no. But is it interesting to watch? Absolutely.
Is it beautiful to Mystery Science Theater 3000? The heck out of it? Yes.
Like,
go ahead.
Look, like you're not going to get many opportunities to watch Dennis Hopper play Bowser, all right? You need to enjoy the chance you got.
In fact, you won't get any more. Dennis Hopper sadly passed away, but... yeah, I mean, you know, that Super Mario Brothers film, the one thing you can say for it is it it has a unique perspective. It is like, if you see that film, it sticks with you. It is not forgettable in the way that so many video game films are, right? Like Pixels. That was the big budget Adam Sandler video game movie that came out a few years back. And to me, that film is utterly forgettable. And like,
I forgot to watch it.
I think I watched it, and it was like a fine way to spend an hour and a half. But yeah, not really like, oh my gosh, this is great.
It does not emotionally scar you in the way that Super Mario Brothers does.
And also, I'm just hot take, probably not really hot take. Bob Hoskins, way better Mario than Chris Pratt. Just saying, way more inspired choice.
That's pretty much anyone, though. It's a very low bar.
But I mean, I do love me some Bob Hoskins. So.
Now, what we really need is Bob Hoskins playing Garfield.
That would work.
I think he'd also kill that role much better than Chris Pratt.
Okay, I can't. Here's the thing: of all the Parks and Rec actors you could have got for Garfield, Nick Overman was like the obvious choice. Like, he is Garfield. Like, he exudes that energy. Like, just why the hell did you not go with? If anything, like, Chris Pratt is like the sad boy John Arbuckle. Like, I'm not saying I want to reward him with the part. I'm just saying that character much better matches his energy.
I think I can't think of the actor's name right now. The actor who plays Ben, Adam Scott. Like, he's John Arbuckle, right? Like, he's kind of,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
meepish, like sort of nerdy and everything. Yeah. Like, he would be John, and then Nick Offerman, Garfield, and just no CG. Just have them play.
Oh, yes.
Like, to me, that works fine and everything.
Oh, God, yes. Yeah, I'm for this.
Here we are stunt casting movies on a video game podcast.
We're not a TV movie podcast.
I mean, we started talking about video game movies at least, but now we're talking about Garfield.
Although nothing is wrong with just recasting Breckenmeyer as John Arbuckle.
I like Breckenmeyer, but yeah, okay.
He did him good in the Robot Chicken sketches where he eventually got to replay John Arbuckle.
Let's see, some news about the next Grand Theft Auto. I think the last episode we were actually talking about how they were scrapping some of their remakes or, sort of retooling of some of their old games and everything, ports and everything, so they can focus more on Grand Theft Auto 6. Some news has come out about that. Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be set in Miami or Vice City, which is their fictional equivalent of Miami, and the surrounding cities. My interpretation of that is that we will probably get like some tourist beach city, a sort of Fort Lauderdale type area, and I would almost guarantee we'd get an Orlando type city mixed in there, right? Like, they're not going to pass up the chance to make fun of Disney. That seems perfect fodder for a Grand Theft Auto game.
Yeah, I would love to see the Disney in the GTA universe.
Yeah, it's got to be great, right? Like, what are they going to put instead of the Epcot Planet, Spaceship Earth ball and everything? What are they going to put up there? Maybe we don't want to know. And of course, what would be really exciting is if they do Disney and they do Universal and they really play off of that difference between these two and everything. And then they have SeaWorld and Legoland and all these other surrounding parks to play with. That seems like a lot of fun for that group to do. So as part of this, it's going to star two playable characters who are pitched as a sort of Bonnie and Clyde. And one of them is going to be a Latina character. So a female character, first female character in the modern era of Grand Theft Auto. I think there was one in Grand Theft Auto 1. And they have noted that they're trying to take a more sensitive approach to making a Grand Theft Auto game, less punching down, as the series has been known for in the past.
I'll say that sounds very oxymoron. Sensitive Grand Theft Auto.
Cuddlier Grand Theft Auto.
It does, and you can imagine that people on social media have taken this news well. And,
People on social media take all news well.
Lots of go woke, go broke, directed at Rockstar, and I think Rockstar is very difficult to imagine Rockstar making a game today where one of the missions is kill all the Haitians, which is literally in one of the Grand Theft Auto games.
Yeah.
Now, it's talking about a gang of Haitians in that case, right, who you're fighting with and everything. It's not just a go kill all this ethnicity or this nationality, but it's really difficult to imagine making that in a game today.
It doesn't feel like much better than that. Like, that's pretty gross still. So,
yeah, I mean, that's a very low bar to clear, right?
Yeah.
So, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this and everything. I think it's exciting if they're going back to Vice City. This is apparently going to be set in modern day. It won't be the 80s Vice City of Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And then kind of tied into this, apparently work conditions at Rockstar have improved while they're going through all these other changes. Rockstar has been notorious for having pretty terrible working conditions, lots of grind working on these games and everything. Lots of people pulling, 18-hour days and everything to work on these games and to finish them up for the weeks and months leading up to release. They have apparently fixed a lot of those issues. I'm not going to say 100%, but of course this is just what is leaking out and everything about this. But in the process, their development has slowed down considerably. And this has apparently rubbed some of the team working on the game a little wrong, who haven't been particularly happy about this. But, those are the trade-offs, I suppose. So are you excited for Grand Theft Auto 6?
I don't really play Grand Theft Auto, but I am interested in seeing what they do. Because I do like the idea of them trying to become more conscious. There's a part of me that's really curious to see how that's actually going to turn out.
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible. You can't do a Grand Theft Auto game that is, it just feels so strange to say, more thoughtful. But there's that one part of me that's kind of pessimistic as to whether they're actually going to accomplish that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alicia's reaction, right, that being offensive and Grand Theft Auto are so tied together in the public's mind that the idea of trying to make something that, is it still going to be offensive and just not as offensive? Or, what line exactly are they walking there?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see when the game comes out and what the news articles and people say about it. I have never liked these games. I don't foresee any situation where I'll play it, but it'll be interesting to see how fans react when the game is out.
Yeah.
I've always liked the games, but not necessarily for the gameplay, but the radio stations. So I'm very excited for the radio stations. So to see what they do with that. And if they don't have radio stations, I'm not buying it.
But I can't imagine them making a Grand Theft Auto game without the radio stations.
Right.
That seems such a radical departure.
Yeah.
But so does being thoughtful.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and one of the issues is, right, you're making a Grand Theft Auto game today. Is anyone listening to the radio?
I'm offended, yes.
Well, I mean, we're creating a podcast, right? So is it that you will have your phone connected to the car and you'll be shuffling through different podcasts instead of different radio stations? Or
That could be cool.
Will it still be radio? Because, I just think about, I talk to so many people who are like, no, I never listen to the radio anymore. I'm listening to music or a podcast or something. I never turn on the radio.
It makes me so sad.
It does it really make you sad?
Yeah.
You're
don't know.
nostalgic for radio?
Well, I usually, everything in Carbondale is a 7-minute drive. And I'm like, that's not long enough to pull out my phone and
Sure.
put on music. So I just turn on the radio. And then I don't have to deal with, and yeah, I would hope that they keep the radio stations. And maybe they mix it up, have somewhere, okay, you're shifting and listening to podcasts, and somewhere you're listening to radio, but...
There could be like an unpaid Spotify account, and they just have weird ads that pop in.
Yeah, there you go. That could work. I mean, and Spotify and Apple Music both do have like programmed radio stations as part of them. I know Apple Music does. And so it could be something like that. Or maybe it's Sirius XM. You have satellite radio.
Yeah.
So it can be like even edgier, which I don't know how that works with Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, and I bet you meet someone and they give you their SoundCloud.
Maybe you can. So in Grand Theft Auto 5, they did have like a social media equivalent where you could go on your phone and look at social media posts. So what if there is like you go on their social media equivalent and there's a popular post and then the next post under it is check out my SoundCloud.
What if you get to make your own SoundCloud in this game?
Well, I think that's the next step for GTA.
It's just like a music mixing game.
Grand Theft Audio.
It's Grand Theft Audio because you are sampling other songs.
It's all samples.
Oh man, that's too good of an idea. They need to do that.
That's great.
Speaking of social media, TikTok is testing games that you play within the app. Have any of you seen this? Any of you use TikTok?
I have too much of an addictive personality. I don't dare download TikTok.
I do. It was not a good game, the only one that I saw. It was like, hey, this is the new feature. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll try it. It just wasn't good.
Is that something that interests you to have games within TikTok?
No.
No, not really. Like
Burn it with fire.
I played Facebook games for a little bit, way when they first started, like 85 years ago, I guess. But I have my own place for games. If I want to play them, I don't need it on TikTok. I'm on TikTok to watch short videos, not play games.
Yeah, I feel like if you're going to put games into TikTok, then they need to be games that play off of TikTok somehow. Like let people make trivia questions that then become part of a trivia game within TikTok or something.
Yeah.
And let them record themselves asking the question or doing something. That could be fun, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, people do a lot of game type stuff anyway because there's like all the filters and stuff. It's like, which Disney princess are you? And then people will have it, and it's above their head, and it goes through all of them and stops. And sometimes it's funny. So those types of games are already in TikTok, but I think that's the extent that they need to be in TikTok.
Yeah, I've got a friend who's always reposting his onto Facebook and everything. So that's the only reason I know what those are.
It might. I could see it being interesting. Maybe I don't think it'd be my thing, but I could see it being a thing to like make a version of TikTok for games that's basically like an online running version of WarioWare that's constantly changing and remodifying and.
Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting, like micro games in that sort of sense.
Call me TikTok. I won't play it, but I'll pitch it.
Capcom released some of their sales updates. This is as of June 30th. Monster Hunter World has sold over 18 million copies. Monster Hunter World, I believe, is now their all-time best-selling video game in Capcom history, which is kind of amazing when you think about the very long history of Capcom and video games. Many people credit that game as being the game that saved Capcom because apparently they were in talks or at least openly discussing the possibility of selling off the company. And then that game kind of changed a lot of that talk. Resident Evil 7 has sold 11 million copies. Monster Hunter Rise, 10 million. The Resident Evil 2 remake, 9 million. Actually, 9.8, so just almost at 10. Dragon's Dogma is at 6.8 million copies. Street Fighter V, 6.6 million. Resident Evil Village, the newest one, 6.4 million. Devil May Cry 5, 5.7 million. Resident Evil 3 remake, 5.4 million, and Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, that's the expansion pack, at 2.5 million. Any of these numbers stick out to you or particularly interesting to you?
You know, this is kind of just in general, but I've never played a Monster Hunter game, but I hear people talk about it all the time, and they sell so many, but I've just never played one. I don't even know what they're about, if we're being honest.
I wasn't interested in them for the longest time. I'm kind of starting to become interested because now I'm just kind of like at the point, it's like, all right, I want to see what the big deal is. I think it's not necessarily that I dislike them. It's just, I think the idea of hunting monsters can be cool, but as like the focus of a whole game, there's a part of me that wonders if I'd play that and it'd feel repetitive. And plus, I think I kind of like I'm fine with fighting stuff in video games. I've done that for a long time. As far as like that, when you're making and designing cool monsters, there's a part of me that likes the Pokemon idea of working with them and stuff. So, but I'm now, but I know there's some Monster Hunter games. I don't know which ones where you actually do work with the monster some. I don't know if that's Monster Hunter's Rise or whatnot, but I'm getting curious to try them. Very long-winded way of just saying that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting is just how well Resident Evil is selling. And I think we kind of knew it was selling well because they've been churning out remakes and new games quite a bit, and it's always been a successful series. But, Resident Evil 7 selling 11 million copies, that's a huge hit.
Yeah.
Anything selling over 10 million copies is a big deal these days. So, seeing it over 11 million, seeing the RE2 remake right at 10 million. By the way, right now, the Humble Bundle store has a bundle of basically just about every Resident Evil game for $30. That's on PC. I think the only thing it doesn't have is like Code Veronica. Because this is the game that everyone forgets.
Yeah.
But, it has everything up through Village. But Village, you only get a 50% off coupon, but it has all the others, has the remakes and 7 and all of that. So pretty cool bundle if you're interested in those. Speaking of sales figures, Nintendo also released some of theirs. They said that the Switch sales are actually down, and they blame this on supply constraints, that basically they can't produce enough Switches for the market and what people are wanting to buy, which is pretty incredible for the Switch. Some 6 years out after it's released and everything, it's sold over 100 million units, and they are still struggling to produce enough for people to buy.
They got lightning in a bottle with that system.
Seriously.
Yeah.
They release, these are, I believe, just quarterly figures, because these are obviously not all time, because they have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 1.48 million copies. So obviously that game has sold something like 30 million copies over its lifespan. So I believe these are just for the past quarter, but they had Nintendo Switch Sports, 4.8 million copies. And, just to put that into some context, lifetime sales of the Resident Evil 3 remake are 5.4 million. So when people ask, why does Nintendo put out these games that are very casually targeted and marketed and everything, this is the reason why. They sell a ton of them when they put them out. Mario Strikers Battle League, the new one, sold 1.9 million. Kirby and the Forgotten Land sold 1.8 million, which now puts its total at over 4 million, which makes it the best-selling Kirby game of all time.
We love Kirby.
But that's kind of interesting. Kirby, the best-selling Kirby game of all time, is a little over 4 million copies. And when you compare that over to those Capcom sales, it really shows you that Nintendo has their top-tier games, right? Like the Zeldas of the world, the Pokemons of the world that are selling 10, 20 million copies. And then their other franchises like Kirby, like Metroid, are really selling down in the low single-digit millions, which, theoretically, they're still turning a profit, but they are not. That's certainly not making them the bank that those key franchises, like bizarrely Mario Kart 8, which cannot be stopped.
Seriously.
So every human being on Earth owns a copy.
That should just be the title of the next Mario Kart game.
We cannot be stopped.
So on a Nintendo-related thing, I saw a social media post, and somebody said, hey, so who else gave in and licked a Switch cartridge just to see what the hype was about? And I was like, I had no idea what they're talking about. So like I went through the comments, and apparently they put something special on the Switch cartridges to make them super bitter so kids don't eat them. And people are like, oh, I wonder what that tastes like. And so people are licking the Switch cartridges. I haven't. I probably won't, but
Probably.
well, I'm like, well, I wonder what it tastes like. I mean, if it's super bitter, what?
Well, now
does
we
it
need the
taste
news
like?
report, OJ. You have to do it.
I don't know. I've avoided it this far, but I also haven't used my Switch since I read that, so we'll see.
So
Gosh.
I think a lot of that stems from when the Switch first came out. Jeff Gerstmann, who was at Giant Bomb at the time, now has his own thing, actually did that on camera. Like put a Switch cart in his mouth and everything because people dared him to do it. And
Oh my gosh.
he said he could not get the taste out of his mouth for several hours afterwards, if I remember that correctly and everything. So that gets brought up a lot with him in that context, but it seemed like one of those things that was like, haha, we did this when this new system first came out. We did something really stupid. The fact that it's still continuing, that this is still a point, and I can just see this being a TikTok trend, and all these videos of kids until somebody accidentally swallows one and chokes on it.
I mean, I applaud them for doing what they can to make things safer for children, but at the same time, you know, they had no idea like this was going to mean that adults were more interested in trying them out. Like, like this is like
This shouldn't have backfired.
this is your Rugrats reboot. Like, babies are like staring at the adults trying to like Switch cartridge. Like, what the are they doing?
Oh my gosh.
So that just means with the Switch 2, they'll just like lean in the other direction and like flavor them. And this game is grape. This game is watermelon.
All Kirby games must be strawberry.
Oh, so the new Pokemon games will be flavor-based titles.
Just accidentally thought about that for a second.
Oh, like, okay, like you could go with like curry flavors too, like Pokemon Red Curry, Pokemon Yellow Curry, Pokemon Green Curry. Like there's...
No, I agree. I think there's lots of ways to go with that. And
Pokemon Onigiri and Pokemon Jelly Donut.
Yes!
Pokemon Jelly Donut. I want to see what is the exclusive Pokemon in the Jelly Donut game. Is it a Jelly Donut looking Pokemon?
No, but you get to have a companion. Brock follows you around all the time and is always making jelly donuts.
Comes with like Jigglypuff shaped jelly donuts made by Krispy Kreme.
I don't want any of Brock's jelly donuts. What Brock's done to those donuts.
If I were a cartoon, I would be very into Brock. That's all I have to say. So I will eat his jelly donuts.
Well, we found this week's episode title. I will eat Brock's jelly donuts. Moving right along, Bungie's has a harassment. So
This is not funny. I'm just
I hate
laughing
that
about the
we're
jelly
turning
donuts.
from.
maybe this isn't the story we should go on to.
Let's go to the Meet Your Maker announcement first.
Yeah, maybe we'll come back to that one. We all pull ourselves together.
So a new game was announced called Meet Your Maker. It's sort of Doom meets Minecraft, sort of that sort of blocky format, and also like sort of building the world and everything. Not a whole lot to say about this. Look up the images and video that's been released for it. It looks pretty cool, and so I felt like it deserved getting called out a little bit here. The Xbox Series S, this is the cheaper less powerful version of Xbox's new console. It's the small white one that's basically the size of a couple of DVD cases put together. It's really tiny. They are getting a performance boost. They are freeing up some memory, some RAM, is my understanding. My understanding is that when these consoles launch, they often hold back a lot of resources to run the basic operating system. That Microsoft has figured out ways to free up some of those resources so that the games can use them instead of the underlying OS needing them. This is also apparently coming in response to some developers complaining that it was becoming very difficult with the Xbox Series S to make the games run and look the way that they wanted them to. Already, the S games tend to be limited to a 1080p versus 4K resolution, but apparently they were struggling even with that in some cases. So this has apparently been pushed out, I believe at this point, just into the beta releases, but that will be coming to all Series S owners very soon. Let's see. Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the film, not the game, has been announced for a release of October 20th.
December 20th.
Oh, yes. December 20th, excuse me. December 20th, 2024. Now, here's the really exciting part. That means it will be going up directly against Avatar 3.
Oh, wow.
Oh no, what movie will I go see?
Well, we know which one you'll go see. If you can only see one hairy blue thing, you're going to see Sonic and not Jake Scully. What is his name?
Who even cares anymore?
Honestly, so I have to admit, I've never seen any of the Avatar movies.
There was only one, and don't waste your time.
Oh, okay. Well, you said Avatar 3.
Yeah, the second one's coming out this year, I think. But
Oh.
honestly,
Yeah, it is.
it's not a. It was very technologically impressive for the time, but it looks dated now, and it wasn't a good plot. Don't waste your time. Go see Sonic.
All right. I have seen both Sonics, so I've seen more Sonic movies than Avatar movies.
So Avatar is again now, I believe, the highest grossing film of all time. And I find that very funny that you haven't seen it, but you've seen both Sonic films.
In the theaters.
As you should.
Okay, I have seen them, but I did not see them in the theater. All right, we'll jump back to this Bungie story since we don't have the giggles right now. So Bungie, so I didn't know all the details of this. I knew Bungie was getting harassment and everything online. That harassment was pretty heinous and everything. Apparently, this is all in response to a tweet in which they praised a Destiny 2 player by the name of
Amaze, as I'm guessing how that's pronounced.
Amaze, yeah, with a UH at the beginning, Amaze. But had apparently, while streaming, done like sort of freestyle rapping, I guess, of his streaming or about the game itself and everything. And Bungie had retweeted this and been like, hey, this is great. And apparently, in response to that, people just flipped the hell out and directed all sorts of death threats and racial epithets towards the Bungie team, the developers and everything. This included online, but also included contacting them at home and everything. This is another in a long line of these stories that we see. Of course, we talked about earlier this summer with Ron Gilbert, one of the developers of the new Monkey Island game, where he basically came out and said, hey, I'm just not posting or talking about this game for a while because people were harassing him so much because they were unhappy with how the game looks, which is a very distinct art style, but not a bad art style. I don't know if this is symptomatic of a bigger social issue or something, very limited to games, but it does seem to be more and more of a problem in games of people just harassing developers. And, video game developers have always faced some level of harassment of people I'm not happy with this. Why are you taking so long with this game? This sort of stuff. We saw this with God of War, where people were flipping out because they didn't get a God of War trailer. They got it like a week later, but because they didn't get it the day they thought they were going to, they flipped out and everything. So we've always seen some of that, but this has escalated to, again, death threats, racial epithets used towards people. This is crazy behavior.
Well, threatening them at home, that's just really never okay.
It's just like a really gross form of like fan entitlement. Like, we want this thing, you owe us this thing, we will torment you if you don't give us this thing.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I guess the closest I can think of in broad media would be something like with the Game of Thrones books. I know George R.R. Martin has like faced a lot of kind of harassment of people angry at him because how dare you not finish these books yet? We've also seen this with the DC films, with the Snyder cut and the whole Snyderverse of people kind of losing their mind because why aren't you making the film that I want you to make? I think fan entitlement, you know, is the right term for it, and it's bizarre and weird. And
well, it's interesting to me. I've been in a variety of fandoms my entire life. Like, fandom studies is one of my research interests. I'm fascinated by this stuff, but it's really interesting to me looking at, because I look at this and I think of K-pop fans, and a lot of times Korean pop groups, the members are encouraged to be very open to fans, like, and so fans often end up with kind of a series of possessiveness over them, a lot of really ugly parasocial relationships. There's a lot of stalking of these group members and that and harassment and all of that.
I think that's true of a lot of like sort of boy bands and pop starlets and everything, your Britney Spears and those types.
Yeah. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, on the one hand, like, not excusing it at all, but their companies push the group members to be very open with fans, and in a way the companies kind of encourage that behavior to a point. I will say this, they are very good about when it goes too far, those companies do take legal action. But I feel like there's not really always that openness with game developers, where like a game development company isn't like, hey, you know, let me do a video diary of me in my hotel room.
Right.
So it's really interesting to me, and not in a good way, to see this fan entitlement spreading into video games in a way that I've more commonly seen it in other areas.
Well, and I think that, you know, in general, right, most media creators, I'm not going to use the term content creator because, ugh, what a terrible term. But like most people who are creating media out there are more open, say, today than 30 years ago. And that's due to social media. Right? The fact that you can go online and you can find Ron Gilbert, because when I was a kid and playing the Monkey Island games, if I wanted to contact Ron Gilbert, I would have had to write Lucasfilm Games and send them a blind letter. And, you know, it would have been, hey, Ron Gilbert, you're the best. Here's my idea for a new Monkey Island game. And I think, you know, that sort of contact is more difficult. Right? That sort of fandom of like, I love your games, I want to reach out to you. That takes a lot of effort and everything. And so you almost only got it from children who were so naive as to think that anybody was going to read their letter. I don't know if I ever wrote a letter to a game developer, but I'm sure at some point I thought I should write Miyamoto a letter what the new Mario game should be. Like, I'm sure that crossed my mind at some point.
Oh, I know. I was like that when I was a little kid.
But I had no way of reaching Miyamoto, right? So now there is a way to reach these people. And I wonder if that makes it for the the sort of worst of the fans because it's so much easier to like, just vomit out whatever they're feeling in that moment because they are more accessible. Not as accessible, and you're right, they're generally not. What's the band B23? What is that group? BTS, yeah. I'm putting numbers in it.
Don't get me started on
I was thinking
BTS.
of the
Don't get
when you said that.
don't get me started on armies.
But like, you look at like that group and right, like I'm sure they're out there doing like you're saying, doing like, hey, we're here in Seattle and we're doing a video and stuff. And game developers generally aren't doing that as much. You're right in that, but they still are like infinitely more accessible than they were 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And, that certainly seems to have changed things with people's sense of like, almost like they have some sort of relationship with these people.
I think with not to nerd out too much on research stuff, but
nerding out on a video game podcast.
You've already like established, your cool factor.
You showed up for this.
But I think you're right. I think with their presence on social media, there's a lot more parasocial relationships. I think also people get invested in this, outing myself as a recovering weeaboo. Notice me, senpai. Of like, oh, let me tweet at Miyamoto. And, if I tweet at this company and occasionally they'll reply to someone, so maybe this time they'll reply to my tweet. And then it's a very fascinating situation. And I say that with a sense of there's morbid curiosity in it and genuine fascination.
Right. And I think part of that morbid curiosity is how dangerous it feels in a way that, when the internet first came around, I remember when the internet first came around, or I first got access to the web and everything. I remember running a web page and posting something that some actor saw and like commented on. And it was like the actor from like a TV show or something, and being like, that's cool. Like, you have a way to interact with these people that never existed before. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it was like so like walking into Disney World, right? Like this is a magical new place and a magical new thing. And you were just so kind of in awe of it. And it's taken such a dark turn like Disney World. And now it's just, a terrifying hellscape to get
much like Disney World.
Right. At least Epcot Center. and I can imagine like this being a point where a lot of people like Ron Gilbert go, hey, I don't want to be part of this anymore. Like, this is not healthy for me to be part of this. Maybe not even safe, but certainly not healthy.
Yeah.
I know I've watched a bunch of YouTubers who are like, I don't even read the comments anymore.
Right.
And these are genuinely wholesome people as far as they present themselves.
Yeah. And like people refer to themselves as stans off of the like Eminem song Stan, where it's like an obsessed fan, like who's obsessed so much that he like kills his family over it. Right. And so it's like, and then people are proudly saying, oh yeah, I'm just like Stan. Right.
Oh, I didn't know
Stan,
that was
I think,
context of that.
Yeah, Stan has, I think, moved beyond that context of just like, oh, I stan this group, I stan this. But yeah, it's got some pretty dark origins.
Yeah.
And something else I just want to add, earlier you were talking about like how fans react to like boy bands like BTS and stuff. Another thing, like in Japan, like in the pop culture industry, like Japanese pop idols, like oftentimes they'll be a part of groups. They're not allowed to have like to date or have boyfriends.
Absolutely not.
Because that messes with the fans' illusion of, I could date this person.
Yeah. Or they're dating each other. They could be dating each other.
Yeah.
Right.
And if they get caught dating, like, oh my God, it's a scandal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you see that with, I think our equivalent of that are the, like, Disney Channel stars, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, they, Disney even manipulates that to the point of taking these two stars and sending them to a premiere event together, so it looks like they're dating, and then that drums up more interest and everything among fans. And there's something kind of dark, very dark about taking teenagers, kids, and using them in that way.
It's pretty slimy.
Oh yeah, it's grotesque.
Yeah, this is off topic, but have you seen the stories about the actress from that show iCarly?
Jeanette McCurdy.
She does a good podcast.
She's been doing interviews over the last couple of weeks. She's got a new book coming out. I believe the title, if I get it not 100% right, is "I'm Glad My Mom Is Dead."
Yeah, I'm glad my mom died is what it's called.
I'm glad my mom died. And she's talking a lot about the abuse that she suffered as a child, both at home and also on set of doing that show and everything. But one of the things she talks about and she suggests is that when she was doing the show, was it Sam and Cat, where she was doing it with Ariana Grande, and she feels like that Nickelodeon maybe pitted the two of them against one another, and some other people have come out and said, well, we don't know in that instance, but yes, this does happen.
I'll say I'm sure Nickelodeon did.
And so, if you are listening and you're interested, watch some of those interviews because, she touches on some things that you can find lots more information about out there on the internet, and pretty sad and disturbing about the world of child celebrity. All right, that very dark, sad news to something a little happier. We talked earlier about finding secrets in games with Nier Automata. We've just found a secret for a game that's almost 30 years old at this point, Super Punch-Out, the sequel to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out that came out on the Super Nintendo. There's been a code that's been discovered that makes it a two-player game. It lets somebody on the second controller control one of the boxers that you're fighting. So
I love that.
Somebody plays Little Mac and somebody plays one of the boxers that you're fighting. This is insane. 30 years later, people have discovered a way to make Super Punch-Out a two-player game.
I love gamers.
And just a crazy thing. Super Punch-Out is on the Switch Online service. So if you subscribe to the Switch Online service where they have all the games on there, they have Super Punch-Out on there, so you can actually play this and do it. Just really cool.
It's wild that they never released that. Like, oh, hey, there's a code that makes this two-player. Like, that seems like something that would definitely come out.
My understanding is that in the era that at least OJ, you and I grew up in, where there was no internet to speak of, at least that we were using, and that people were getting secrets and tips and codes mostly from game magazines. Those were often the game developers providing those to the magazines. That was like a marketing tool of theirs. Like, we're going to build in these secrets, we'll put out the game, and then a couple of months later we'll put them, we'll give those to these magazines and let the magazines publish them, and that'll drum up more interest for our game. Right. And so, it's kind of crazy that this never leaked out. Nobody who worked on this game ever was like, hey, by the way, you can do this.
Yeah.
Still, one of my favorite secrets of all time is in one of the Star Wars games where they hid the Naboo starfighter in the game, but they did it a year. They released the game like a year. Maybe it wasn't a full year. Maybe it was a few months. Maybe it was like 6 months or something before Episode 1 came out. And so they didn't release the code until Episode 1 came out. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, surprise, this thing in this new movie is actually in this game. And I always thought that was like one of the coolest things.
That's amazing.
It's one of the Rogue Leader games, I guess, Rogue Squadron. Let's see. Netflix currently has 24 games that they have available on mobile platforms, with plans for 50 by the end of the year. but only 1% of people have downloaded one of these games. I'm part of that 1%. I did download and try a couple of the Netflix games.
Yeah, I feel like my reaction to this is the same one with TikTok. Like, just why?
Into the Breach was one of the games I downloaded. That is a very good game. It's a game I'd already played, but if you have Netflix, and I would say maybe not on the phone, but on like a tablet, that's a very good game to play. So it's worth it for at least that one game, I guess. Speaking of movies, there's a new Sonic the Hedgehog film coming. There's a new live-action Pac-Man movie coming.
You sent us that article, and I genuinely thought it was like a piece from The Onion or something. I was like, hang on. Is this going to be live action like how the Lion King remake is live action? That's the only way I can fathom this.
Ooh, don't you want to imagine the texture of Pac-Man if they were trying to do it like a live action like that?
Okay, I know we brought up Pixels earlier. I'm going to bring it up again. Like I said, it was a fine hour and a half, but the Pac-Man section of that was pretty fun. Like,
it's probably the only good part of the movie,
probably. Really. Like, that's the only way I want to see a Pac-Man movie that's not a cartoon, like not a 2D or cartoon.
Maybe it'll just be like Danny DeVito in like a yellow jersey and yellow gym shorts chasing around.
Okay, that's an exception. I want to see that.
Danny DeVito running around going waka waka. There's some entertainment value in that.
Oh man!
Especially if like every 20 feet he has to stop and catch his breath. He's holding his bag like it hurts.
Blue pellets are just like an asthma inhaler and medicine for back pain.
And they make a British version where he's just like, oh shit.
Yeah, this is coming from some of the people behind the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. So my guess is this is going to be very similar to those Sonic the Hedgehog movies. Those have been successful. They've kind of proved a formula that works. So I would guess Pac-Man is going to get teamed up with some actor. I don't know who is the Pac-Man equivalent of James Marsden. James Marsden, as I've noted before, a fine actor, but a fine actor who always plays second fiddle and feels like his career has just never taken off because, hey, we're casting you as the lead in the X-Men movie. And he's like, fantastic. And they're like, but it's really going to be all about Wolverine, and you're just the jerk Cyclops in our version.
Yeah, he really got burned at the end of that trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phoenix get it. Yeah.
Oh man,
I don't know if she actually burned him or anything.
But yeah, this. I don't know. I really like Pac-Man. Pac-Man doesn't really have a personality per se in the same way that Sonic does. I
mean, if you went back to like some of the Pac-Man World games for like the PlayStation 2, there's some personality, there's some fun, goofy story for that. I just please don't give Pac-Man a human sidekick. That's just gonna make it dumb.
Or maybe he had like a baby at some point, didn't he?
Right. There's a whole Pac family. There's a whole controversy over Miss Pac-Man and her name, and yeah, it's a whole thing.
Maybe his kid's Michael Cera. I don't know. And Michael Cera just looks like a person, but he realizes he can eat ghosts like his dad or something, and his dad takes him on a journey. I don't know.
Or this could be a gritty reboot where they're showing us where the ghosts that are always coming after him come from because he murdered them.
I feel like if they're doing the gritty reboot, it's got to be like that T-shirt that always pops up online where Pac-Man is in a spacesuit and the ghost are all the other astronauts who have died and everything. And so I feel like that's the gritty Pac-Man movie I want to see.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean,
release the Snyder cut.
Yes, Zack Snyder's live-action Pac-Man movie. Oh, yeah.
And it's connected to an extended universe, like Among Us.
Yeah, I mean, my Pac-Man personality is the 80s cartoon series that used to be on ABC Saturday mornings. So, but, that's not much to build off of. That cartoon was pretty simple. Midnight Suns, that is the new Marvel game that is sort of an XCOM strategy game that has been delayed until 2023. Hogwarts Legacy, the new Harry Potter game that has also, as of this morning, been delayed until 2023. We actually have an exact date on that, February 10th. So I would make a turf joke here, but the people behind that game are being very good at being inclusive and, allowing for a variety of choices of gender and everything in it. So it's not fair to crap on them because of J.K. Rowling's comments.
Yeah.
Multiverses has hit over 10 million players before it has officially launched. It is still in beta and now has over 10 million players. That is amazing.
That is wild.
A free-to-play game. So that game is a big hit already.
I am interested in trying that one out. That's the first Smash Brothers clone I've been interested in.
Yeah. I'm just terrified to see Shaggy at his full power.
As we all are.
I just want to see Steven and Arya duke it out.
Sonic Omens fan game has been released. So, Alicia, I included this in here especially for you. This is on the PC. You can download this. It is a game in the style of Sonic Adventure and, all those styles of games, sort of behind the back 3D action game. It's a completely fan-made game. There are levels where you're flying an airplane, it looks like. I have not had a chance yet to download and play this. I'm kind of interested because I'm always think fan games are kind of neat. But it looks very well done. I think that's the reason I included it, because this is not one of those cheap fan games. This looks like people spent a lot of time and a lot of effort on this.
Yeah, the Sonic fan game community is really fun and interesting. I know Sonic P06 has been in development forever to improve Sonic 06 from the interesting game that was. But I'm not usually much of a PC gamer, but I'll check this out because if nothing else, I'll go watch a walkthrough because it sounds fun. Yeah. I do miss the adventure style games.
Kirby's Dream Buffet. We talked about this, I believe, last time. It had just been announced. They have actually set a date and given some details. This is coming out August 17th. It's only going to cost $15. It has 3 different modes. One of them they call a Battle Royale mode. It's still only 4 players. It's not 100 Kirbys battling one another. As exciting as that is.
That would be amazing.
There's a mini game mode, and then there's the main mode that they kind of showed off when they originally showed a trailer for this game, which has you racing other players through levels, and you're trying to eat as many strawberries as you go through the level, and then whoever has the biggest Kirby, because they ate the most strawberries at the end, wins. This looks pretty neat, and I think at $15, this is kind of exciting to see Nintendo do something like this, to me. Because I feel like Nintendo has a lot of franchises that don't make sense as $60 games, and it would be really cool to see them bring back some of those franchises and say, hey, we can make this as a $20 game or a $30 game and put it out. We don't have to make it a full $60 game. And, doing something kind of experimental like this and making kind of this fun little multiplayer game out of Kirby feels like the perfect fit for that. $15 feels like a fair price, at least right now, before we've had a chance to play it. I don't know. What do you think of this?
I think I'm probably gonna buy this one, honestly. Watching the trailers, I was kind of like, if I don't have anyone else who buys it to play with, then I don't know. But honestly, Kirby's just so darn wholesome and cute, and yeah, the game looks like a Fall Guys ripoff, but you know what? I would rather play Kirby. I would rather play the Kirby version. So,
and that cake looks so delicious.
It looks so delicious, and I love when Kirby shrinks. His first thought is not, "Oh my gosh, I've shrunk." It's bigger food.
Right. More food.
Just relatable.
I love Kirby so much. I'm
It
excited
is
for
relatable,
this.
isn't it?
It's so relatable.
If you shrunk me down onto a cake, my first thought would be, let's eat this entire cake. Let's roll around in it. This is my dream come true.
Right?
And so I can't blame Kirby. I can't judge Kirby.
I'm right there with him.
All right, let's stop there with the news and let's move on to what you're playing. Alicia, you've been gone for quite a while. We haven't heard at all about what you've been playing. So this summer, have you had a chance to play much?
I haven't been able to play a whole lot. I picked up a couple of Switch games because I found them on sale for $40 instead of $60. So really, I saved $40 by buying these two games.
That is certainly a way of telling yourself
Yeah.
what you did.
That's how finance works.
Yeah, totally. But I've been playing a lot of Kirby Star Allies, which was honestly really fun, not only just because it's a fun game, but I was playing it when I was at home. And so, you know, when I was growing up, my sister and I would take turns. We would do 30-minute timers. She would play for 30 minutes on whatever PS2 game we were playing, and then I would play for 30 minutes, and we'd switch back and forth. And so with this, I was playing, and she hung out and watched me, which felt very reminiscent of when we were kids and was really nice. So I'm having a good time playing that one right now. I also I was finally convinced to download Steam, so might start playing some of that. I did start playing Stardew Valley, but like for an hour, so I haven't done a whole lot there yet.
Ooh, Stardew Valley is a dark well to go down to, especially right here before school starts, because that game will eat up a ton of your free time.
Yeah, it's one of those I never really got into, and then I've kind of become pals with several people on Twitch and just have a little community there that I've wormed my way into. And a couple of them were playing it, and again, my mental health was pretty bad this past month, so it was just a very nice calming thing for that. And especially with all the mods that people have, you know, part of why I'm not playing it more right now is because the short days stress me out. But being part of this little Twitch community, everybody knows what mods I should go download. So I'm like, hey, tell me when to download to make the days shorter. And it's also nice just having other people who've played it to be like, yeah, no, it doesn't matter if you don't go make friends with everyone. Like, you can just tend to your farm and do your thing. I'm like, okay, cool. That's all I want to do.
Yeah, that's a fantastic game. When I say it's a dark well to go down, I just mean as a time sink. It's a fantastic game, and I think it is a really good, relaxation or even mental health game, because it is so relaxing and it is so like play it at your speed, play it at whatever level of depth you want to play it.
Yeah.
You know, it just works fantastically in that way.
It's very reminiscent of like Harvest Moon, so like that brings back happy memories. And like I said, I haven't played a lot of it, but I've watched a lot of people play it, and like you said, it's dangerous that I've downloaded it right before the school year starts, because if I really dive into that, that's gonna suck up a lot of time.
But as you noted, the days are short, so it's the sort of game you can jump in and play 30 minutes of and just be like, that's your relaxation when you get home at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and it's not like Animal Crossing where the actual days matter. I can leave it alone for a month and then come back to it, which is nice.
None of the animals are going to be yelling at you.
Yeah.
Our town fell apart. Where did you go?
Yeah, the weirdness of like them talking to you as a fellow villager, but it's almost like, God, why have you forsaken us? There's a whole like weird metaphysical thing going on in Animal Crossing. All right, is that it?
That's been the big ones. Played a little bit more of Kirby Dreamland. Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot of Legends Arceus, but I did also buy the new Pokemon Snap game, so hopefully I get to play that soon too.
Yeah, I'd like to hear your reaction to that. I haven't played that one yet, so I'm intrigued. Ryan, how about you?
Okay, so one regular video game, another, so I've talked about these before, hybrid of video game and board game. The first one I'll bring up is I decided to try out, I was feeling like a puzzle game, because sometimes I like to play those to chill out. I decided to try out Super Mario 64 on the N64 emulator of the Switch. I want to like this game more than I do. It is a little addictive. I did find myself playing. It was like, one more time, one more time, one more. I think, I don't know if it's just me, but if it does play smooth enough or not, but I feel like, and this is the thing with N64 stuff, that it does feel like there's a slight clunkiness to the controls at times. The way it responds to like commands and stuff. But like to anybody who hasn't played it, like basically it's a Tetris clone, sort of. You are like getting things together into groups and lining them. And you're lining up, like, in this case, so you're lining up like 4 colors in a row of the same color of pill, whether it's vertical or horizontal. And if within those colors you include the viruses that are in the Tetris block system, whatever, then that's how you eliminate the viruses. But so unlike regular Tetris or something, though, there are blocks that are already in there that have little angry faces on them that are the viruses that you are trying to eliminate. So I appreciate how this tries to do a more challenging take on Tetris in ways. Here's where it frustrates me. It's just really annoying when the controls feel slightly clunky, and when sometimes you're not... Usually I'm not annoyed by a particular block in Tetris when it comes up. This, depending on what pill comes up, I will get really annoyed based on like what room I have within the rectangle of doom. We'll just call it that. Right. That it's going to fall into. And sometimes it's like pills of like that are half like different colors, so it might be, instead of just a yellow pill, it's a yellow blue pill or a red blue pill or something along those lines. And there's not always a good place to put those within the screen. And I'm not against a puzzle game being challenging, but there's not really any chill in it. It's just kind of complicated and clunky at the very beginning. And I imagine this being a good puzzle game for some people. Again, I'm not necessarily against a challenge in a puzzle game, but this just didn't feel for me. It just felt like the challenges in it were more frustrating and annoying. Things I did appreciate is that there is a story mode in it. And I didn't realize this. In that story mode, you can either play as Dr. Mario or Wario.
Oh.
I might give it another shot. I was tired when I tried. It was a case of I woke up in the middle of the night. I can't fall back asleep. I'm going to try this out, try to relax too, and it didn't work. I'll give it another shot. Maybe I'll feel a little differently about it, but it felt like a Tetris clone that was harder than it needed to be in this case, and it wasn't. And it just wasn't a challenge that was very rewarding. It was just annoying.
Right. I don't think I've ever played the N64 version. I played it on the Game Boy, and so I think that's the only version I ever really played a whole lot of. It was fine on the Game Boy, but it wasn't as good. I never liked it as much as I liked Tetris. So
definitely not. The other thing I played, so me and my brother played a game that is like a hybrid video game called My Father's Work. And in this game, you have like 3 different scenarios you can play within the board game, and they each have 8 different endings. And it's kind of a worker placement, resource management. You're putting out workers to get different things. Like you might be trying to get money. You might be trying to get metal spokes and wheels or such. You might be trying to get human bodies from cemeteries. It's a Frankenstein game. You're playing like a Frankenstein-like scientist that's trying to make his invention. Mm-hmm. And that includes things like you might be trying to make a Frankenstein monster. You might trying to make like lycanthropic strength, like so giving somebody the strength of a werewolf. You might try to make what is like a, just like a robot or like a robot spider you can ride, etc. And you have to build like several different things before you can build the main thing, though. The challenge is as you're trying to get all those things built, over the course of the game, you lose some of your plans. So there's kind of an efficiency game where you're trying to make sure to build all those things within an amount of time that lets you then move on to build the main thing. And where the app comes in is you're playing through different stories, so that it intertwines story with this, and it'll sometimes to make you take choices within the story. So you'll go to the app. Sometimes you'll read it to the entire table. Sometimes it's just for you. And that will affect the course of the game. Like, it will affect, like, what kind of things come out, or maybe what kind of buildings come out, or what buildings get taken away. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you might make, like, you might, like, try to, like, there's corrupt things going on in this building, and then you remove that place from the board. And instead of, like, a regular board, you're flipping through pages in a book that has, like, different sheets for, like, different, depending on how the world looks at that point.
So instead of, sorry to interrupt, but like instead of having like a guidebook that you would go and flip to a page and read a bit of story, this is essentially the app is doing that function.
Right. And sometimes you have a narrator. It depends on the point in the story. I think it's more like at the beginning and end. It's really cool. We both enjoyed the game a lot. Here was the problem with it, though. The app sometimes seemed like it was messing up. Or it would be giving you, like, it would tell you one thing, then the next moment it'd tell you something that contradicted what it just told you. So it, like, it's like, so it might be like, remove all, say, blue cubes from the board. And then it says, like, now take a blue cube from the board if you have such and such. Like, but you just told me to remove them, so what?
Right.
And it is not, like, game-breaking or game-ruining. But it was just kind of confusing and messed with it. And especially when we were trying to learn to play the game early on, it was super frustrating. This was, I think the last time I talked about one of these, it definitely felt more even between being app and, being a video game and a board game, like more of just a mix. It's hard to say what it's more of. This one definitely felt more of a board game, but the video game aspect, like the app definitely affected it for better or for worse. Fun game, the app needs to be worked on, though.
All right. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. OJ?
So last time we did the podcast, we said that Stray was going to be free for the PlayStation Plus. So I went home and played that. And I played it a lot. Have any of you played Stray?
I have not yet.
It is a fantastic game. I was expecting it to be a lot more of just a cat simulator. But there's a whole lot of game in it. But you do get to, like, walk up and there's, like, paint cans and you can just, like, bat them off the side of a building.
Love that.
And, in fact, you have to for certain quests. And it's really great. The gameplay is great. The ability to just walk around as a cat is great. And really just, I think it's an amazing game. I think everyone should play it, really. Yeah, it's not exactly what I was expecting, but that's not a bad thing. I didn't like the ending, though. I think they could have made the ending a little bit better. But the story within itself is good. Darker than I thought, too, but
Looking forward to
really
this
good.
one.
I saw I didn't watch any of them, but I saw some recommended YouTube videos with some very interesting titles about Stray, so I'm definitely interested to check that one out.
I've been very excited by the mods. I know we've exchanged a few of those, like the Garfield mod and some other ones where they're taking famous cats and putting them in place.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I've seen memes of the Thanos snap theme. Spoiler alert: Thanos tries to snap. Tony Stark steals the Infinity Stones and does the snap and snaps Thanos out of existence. The movie's been out for a while. If you don't know, I'm sorry. But I've seen reference to that with the meme. Like, it's instead of it's Kratos from God of War, like, I am inevitable, in the Thanos position, but then he's going to snap and it's not going to work. And then it cuts to the cat in place of Tony Stark just going meow.
Beautiful.
Like,
That's fantastic. Yeah, having a button to just meow is, I think, fantastic. Really, it's one of the best parts of the game.
That needs to be in every game, regardless of if you're playing a cat or not.
Honestly, yeah.
Kratos needs that button in God of War.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. And so
Meow, boy.
And so there are various places in the game where you can just go and, like, scratch a carpet. And, like, sometimes you have to scratch things to, like, get past them. Like, it's a quest that you have to do. But also there's just a bunch of carpets and you can just walk up and start scratching it or scratching the wall. And you can also just curl up and sleep in many different places. And in fact, there's an achievement for sleeping in game for an hour. So the way that I set it up is that I went to one of the areas. There was a robot that was laying on the couch, and then you could jump up on top of him and just go to sleep. And so when you do it, he's laying on a couch, and then you do it, and like it shows like a little heart on his face, like he loves it, and he's just like looking at you, and then he just sits there and like watches you sleep. So I just sat there for an hour with the robot doing
Wholesome cyberpunk. How often do we get that?
Right.
Do the robot's legs fall asleep?
I think probably because he didn't move at all. But you can also rub up on other robots' legs, and then they get a little heart on their face too.
Aww.
Cute.
Yeah. And also, I was playing a game. I found it accidentally when I went to update something on Google Play. It was like, oh, recommended for you. This is a new game.
Was it a controller you were updating?
No, I'm not Alicia. Sorry.
Did you see her lean forward in her seat? She was very interested as soon as you said you went
The
to
mentee
update.
becomes the mentor.
So this game's called The Way Home, and it's a roguelike game. And so I was playing Stray as a cat. Also, in this game, you play a cat. So apparently, the human that you're with just randomly appeared on this island and has no idea what's happening. And you're the cat, and you're like, oh, well, I'm going to go explore this cave. And you have a bow and arrow, and so you just go through, and there's all kinds of different enemies. There's skeletons and stuff. And it's just like little roguelike like caves that you go in. And the awesome part I thought about it is that the first island, there's multiple islands. The very first island, you can go all the way through, and there's no ads. There's nothing asking you to pay anything. And then once you finish that one, and then you're about to move to the second island, a little like person in the game pops up and says, hey, I'm an engineer. So you have these options to continue playing. You can play regularly with ads before every time you go into a dungeon, or you can watch a bunch of ads in a row until you pay for the game, or you could just pay $4.99 for the game, which I thought was a really awesome idea. Like, give me options and also let me actually play the game, because there's a lot of games you download and like 30 seconds in, they're like, no ads for $9.99 or something like that.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if I want to play this. So like, I'm not a whale and I can't just, throw money into games for nothing. So I bought the game because I think it was a really nice little roguelike game too. But I love the option that you go through like a full area of the game before it even bothers you for any type of ad or payment. And so it's really fun. It's a really simple roguelike. Like there's just leveling and equipment and stuff that you get. It's not that much.
It is a very clever way to handle the payment, though, because it's presenting you multiple options.
Yeah.
Right. And, that makes the game more accessible to a wider audience by doing so.
Yeah. And like I can pay $4.99 for a game, but I rather than have ads pop up at multiple times, if I could have just bought some other games just watching a bunch of ads in a row, I'd do that.
Yeah.
So I think it was really, really awesome.
Well, like you said, it's really great that it gives you the opportunity to actually play the game first.
Yeah. Because like there could be games that I would love, but I'm not going to pay up front for all this, and they're just annoying until they get to that point.
That's really building a demo into the game, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a clever way to handle that. That's called The Way Home?
Yes.
Okay.
And then a third game I found, it's an older game, but again, it showed up in my recommended games on Google Play when I went to update something else. And
Is
it's
it a controller this time?
Yes, that was a controller.
It was the PlayStation Backbone one.
And so this game is called Solitarica.
Yes. Very good game.
Oh yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I'd never seen it before. I started playing, but you start as like a character, and it's solitaire where you go up or down. Like if you have like an ace, you can either take a card off the board that is either a 2 or a king, or if you have a 2, it's a 3 or an 8, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then there's different characters that you can play as, and they all have different like starting spells, kind of, and then you can like buy items and different abilities as you're going up through the levels, and it's just really like a goofy game. It's not very serious, but you're trying to. I haven't made it very far in it, so Justin probably has made it farther. through me. But like there's someone at a castle at the very end of this area that you're trying to move towards, and all of these like weird little enemies pop up that you're playing against. So it's really fun. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that game as well. If you like solitaire, and that's for me on the PC, on Windows, that's always like a good way to like chill out when I'm working and like just not have to think super hard. This is a way to do that on your phone, but it's a little bit more advanced than that. Fantastic game. I won't say any more because I don't want to spoil anything, but like it's a very worthwhile game to play. Is that it?
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I haven't played a lot of games because I've been out of town and traveling, and I don't usually play a whole lot of games while I'm traveling, despite having a Switch. I've gotten to the point where I often leave it at home now if I don't know I'm going to have a lot of time to play it. But I did play some more Power Wash Simulator. Still a fantastic game.
That just cracks me up.
It's just not. It's not the game I expect it to really like enjoy a whole lot this year. But I've talked about it before on this podcast. It's a great podcast game to like have on. You're listening to something in the background. It's very relaxing. And there are a lot of levels in the game, which surprises me. There's a ton of content. This was in early access for a while, and there are just a ton of levels. I think I'm getting near the end now, but I'm also, it's a game I'll sit down and play for 30 minutes. And about 30 minutes is where I start to get like, oh, God, I don't want to clean anymore. And I'm like, I don't have to. I can just quit and come back to this later. So it's just a really enjoyable game. And the levels are very creative. They just keep coming up with like new kind of fun, original ideas and everything as you go through. The spaces that are neat to like just explore and look at, which I think a game like this really needs. So highly recommend that one if you're just looking for something to kind of relax to. It is on Xbox Game Pass. Let's see, what else have I been playing? I've been playing 2 Point Campus. I haven't played a whole lot of this yet, but 2 Point Campus is the sequel, I guess, spiritual sequel, spinoff, whatever you want to call it, to 2 Point Hospital. 2 Point Hospital is a spiritual sequel to Theme Hospital, the sort of classic PC strategy game. It was one of those games that came out in the 90s when these sort of management sim games were really big. So you had Theme Hospital, Theme Park, Roller Coaster Tycoon, all those sorts of games. And
Justin, you just unlocked childhood memories that were completely gone from my brain.
Well, then you might like this. I think this game might particularly hold appeal to the people in this room because it is you managing your own university. So you have to lay out the university, you have to build the buildings, you have to build classrooms, you have to place decorations in the classroom and everything, you have to build dormitories and places to eat and everything. And you have to hire faculty, and the whole goal is, so like in 2 Point Hospital, you were trying to upgrade your staff, so the doctors, the nurses, and everything. In this one, you're trying to upgrade the students. And so you upgrade the students by building a better campus, and so their grades increase. So like, you build a classroom first of all, and they'll be C- students. But then you build them a library where they can study in between class, and then their grades will go up. And so suddenly they're like a C+ student. But then you build them dormitories where they can sleep and they can eat, and then their grades go up. And in some ways this is like kind of very simplistic, but in some ways, like, as somebody who's been teaching for about 20 years, I look at it and go, actually, this is actually very accurate. If you provide students the tools, their grades actually do increase. If you provide more faculty, if you provide more support systems on the campus. And of course, it's all done with this very sort of British tongue-in-cheek kind of, or cheeky humor and everything. So, you're building a science classroom, but it has this giant machine in there that's whizzing around and making noises, and students their hair is getting electrocuted up and stuff. It's just like that sort of fun and goofiness and everything, while actually being a pretty good management sim. This plays a lot like 2 Point Hospital, but it is refined. It seems like they've learned a lot from that game and everything. I haven't played a ton of it yet. I haven't got very far into it, but there is like a college that's a magic school. So they're doing the Hogwarts thing, and it's just a lot of fun. And so, like, if you like management sim games, your Sim Cities, The Sims even, this is something that kind of fits very well in there in the middle of all that. And particularly if you are the type of person who may be working on a university campus and at times frustrated by choices made by administrators.
What?
This lets you play the administrator role, and maybe you'll learn to appreciate them more.
Or not.
Most likely, definitely not. But yeah, I mean, if you played 2 Point Hospital, you'll love this, I think, if you like that game. If you never played that, I'd still highly recommend it. Again, probably next episode I'll have more to say about it. The third game that I've played a bit of is Multiverses. So we mentioned earlier it has hit 10 million players. This is the Warner Brothers platform fighter, sort of in the style of Super Smash Brothers and everything. So it's got your Steven Universe and your DC Comics and Hanna-Barbera and all these sorts of characters fighting and playing together.
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones and LeBron James. Because, sure, LeBron James.
And Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it's just, a whole mix of different characters. I'll say that's easily the strongest point of this game to me is those characters, right? I've heard people before say, well, the characters don't really matter. They do. I was able to get into Smash Brothers. I'm not a diehard into Smash Brothers like some people are,
Right.
but I do like those games. I think they're fantastic party games with a group of people who are not taking it too seriously. As soon as people start taking that game super seriously, I check out. I don't have that interest. But the appeal of those games, right, and it has been since the original one, is you have Mario and Luigi and Zelda and Link and Samus and Pikachu, and they're all fighting each other. And that was such a clever, unique idea when that first game came out. This one is you have iconic characters that you know, right? Steven Universe doesn't mean anything to me. I haven't watched that show. Nothing against it. I just haven't watched it. It means nothing to me. But I'm sorry. Hey, having Sonic the Hedgehog in Smash Brothers means nothing to me. Other than the fact that Mario gets to pound on him. So,
Wow.
but, the fun of it is, okay, you have instantly recognizable characters. Everyone has some character that they can recognize in this, right? So people who are older have your your Superman or your Batman or your Bugs Bunny or Tom and Jerry. People who are younger have Steven Universe, or they have the Adventure Time characters, or, they have all these different characters. There's somebody that you can kind of personally latch on to. And, I think that matters a lot in these types of games. The actual gameplay is fine. It's a little floaty compared to Smash Brothers. I don't like that. I know that appeals to some players. Some people like the more floatiness of the games. I don't particularly like it. I like the more kind of feeling a weight of the character and everything. I think it suffers from the same problem that modern Smash Brothers games do, which is that there are times I completely lose track of my character. I won't hold it against this game because Smash Ultimate has that exact same problem. But it's a really good one of these, and it's free. Like, you can just download it for whatever system you're playing on. You can just download this for free and start playing it. And I won't say it's as good as Smash Ultimate, but it's right up there. You know, it's a good alternative, and it's a better alternative than a lot of these have been. It's a better alternative than the Nickelodeon, what was it called, All-Star Brawl, I believe was the name of that one. And that was a game I had some attachment to, because it was like, hey, here's the Ninja Turtles, here's Garfield, here's characters you like. And that game just never did what I wanted it to do. It never had the feel right. This is closer to the feel. This is something I can pick up and play, and I was enjoying pretty quickly right away. You do have to pay to unlock characters, but you can earn that currency through playing the game. You know, but there are also costumes and different things to unlock. So, you know, your frustration or whatever with that's going to depend. I'll say my favorite part of this game is Tom and Jerry. And I love the cleverness of Tom and Jerry are one character together. So think of them sort of like ice climbers in Smash Brothers. But my favorite part of them as characters is that they're never actually attacking you. It is them attacking each other, and you just get caught in the
Oh,
crossfire.
that's awesome.
That's amazing.
So, for example, Tom will try to like hit Jerry and hit you in the process, and like he occasionally will catch Jerry and he'll like put him in a slingshot and shoot him at you or something. But it's all like always in the service of I'm trying to kill this mouse, and you're just getting in our way.
That is amazing.
Whoever came up with that person like needs a frickin' praise, like a frickin' raise, like praise and a raise.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really clever, right? And I think that's the hope for this game, that if they can keep up that level of creativity and cleverness and everything, you know, and the characters are voice acted and everything, and like they brought in like big name voice actors to do these. So like was his name Kevin Conroy for Batman? They bring him in. You know, I feel like the iconic voice that most people
Batman.
associate with Batman at this point. And you know, they have Bugs Bunny saying, you know, I had to do it, and like stuff like that. And it gives a personality to these characters and everything. Some of the characters I don't care anything about, again, but, you know, same thing in Smash Brothers. Some of those characters, mostly the Fire Emblem characters, I don't really care anything about. But, you know, the main characters, I think people will find somebody that they're interested in. So, again, it's free. I think everyone should download it and at least try it.
I will do. This is more appeal to me than the Nickelodeon one, just because of the range of like possible different kinds of characters. Like Nickelodeon's like, oh, from Nickelodeon, but I like the fact that this is stretching just across like stuff that Warner Brothers is connected to, so you can see really weird things. So like oh, it's Bugs Bunny and Arya and Steven Universe and Garnet and Superman all fighting at the same time.
Yeah, I think because we played a little bit of the Nickelodeon one when we were doing the Playing for Pets.
Right.
And it felt very soulless to me.
Yeah.
Versus this, from the beginning, has looked like there's a lot of heart put into it. There's a lot of fun in it. So I'm excited to go home and play it.
So part of the problem with that Nickelodeon game was there were no voices in that game when it launched. There was no voice acting. They have since patched in voice acting. And quite a while after that game released, they patched in voice acting. In fact, I don't think it was there when we played it.
There was no voices.
At Playing for Pets. So it was even after that, right? And that game had already been out for like a year or something at that point. It had been out for a long time. And that does go a long way, you know, like more than you realize. And particularly when the voices of some of these characters are so iconic. Like that Batman Kevin Conroy voice is, you know, the voice that people think of. And the way that if they put the Joker in here and don't get Mark Hamill to do it, it'll be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But, you know, they are adding Rick and Morty to this game. They've announced that. They've actually leaked a lot of characters that are being added. Scorpion and Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat are getting added at some point.
God, this is so cool.
And I think what's really kind of interesting is that you're getting such a range of characters, like Game of Thrones, this very adult television series, and then, all the way down to Bugs Bunny and, things from comic books and cartoons and live action films. And, Warner Brothers is such a big company now merged with Discovery. And then you start thinking, like, are we going to get the Property Brothers in this?
It's like Nintendo's got the Mario Brothers, so we got the Property Brothers.
But, like, there's a lot of weird ways they can go with this game. And, I mean, you start to think that character select screen could get to be pages of characters you're having to scroll through. Yeah. That's both exciting and maybe worrisome, I guess. But it's a good game. It's worth checking out and everything. I liked it better than I anticipated I would.
And I'm not even really a big Rick and Morty fan, but I want to now play as Garnet and just beat the snot out of Rick.
Well, I was just thinking if Sub-Zero is going to be in there, because whenever I think of Sub-Zero, I think about the iconic fatality that, all the people yelled about where he, like, rips their head off. And now I'm thinking about, like, Bugs Bunny with that happening, or, like, Rick, or, like, Steven Universe. Like,
I doubt the fatalities will be in there. When they made, what was it, Mortal Kombat, was it 8? That was the Mortal Kombat versus DC game. They took out all the fatalities. So I assume.
Which is unfortunate because I think like Tom and Jerry, he could have just pulled both their heads off.
There will be mods.
There will be, I'm sure.
I feel like what Tom and Jerry, what you should do is take Jerry, stuff him into Tom's mouth. So, like, Tom feels like, I finally won, and then he rips Tom's head off. So he has that moment of elation right before it's all just stolen away from him.
I want to see, like, Batman try to go after, like, Harley Quinn or the Joker, but he keeps getting caught and beaten the crap out of by, like, Tom and Jerry.
You can do that. All right, it's time for our big question. We've been kind of working our way through the Nintendo system, so we're up to the Nintendo 64. So our question for this week is, what is your favorite Nintendo 64 game? And OJ, why don't we start with you?
Okay, so I have a whole list here, not because I think there were a lot of great games on the N64, but because there were a lot of okay games on the N64.
There's at least a handful of great games.
Yeah,
on that.
I mean, like Smash Brothers came from it, Mario Party came from it, and those are great games. Pokemon Snap was great. But I think overall, when I think about the N64, and I've talked about this before, is Conker's Bad Fur Day. Which wasn't necessarily a super good game, but it was the first game that I encountered that, especially on a Nintendo system, that was just not like, oh, hey, this is a kid's game. It was like, this is an adult game, you're rolling around a big piece of poop, right? like a dung beetle, and just doing all this stuff. So I thought Conker's Bad Fur Day is probably the top for me.
All right, Ryan.
Okay, so I got a couple different answers. One that's just my favorite game I played on it. One that's my favorite, like, N64 exclusive. My favorite game I played on it was Mega Man 64, because that was the port of Mega Man Legends, and that's how I got introduced to that. Mm-hmm. So I just loved that game because I think the things that people are telling me, I think the things I associate with what you're supposed to get out of Zelda, that's what I got out of Mega Man Legends, or in this case, Mega Man 64. I liked how you could... And I was thinking about this. I didn't think about this as a Metroidvania, but I think it has a little bit of that in it, because you dig through ruins in that game, and eventually, like, over time, you find out how the ruins that you've been digging through are connected. Mm-hmm. So you'll go through ruins you've gone through before. It's like, oh, I didn't know these were connected. So there's a little Metroidvania in that, but you're also getting... you don't level up in, like, an RPG in the same way that you, like, level up strength and dexterity or whatnot, but you get parts to weapons over the course of the game, like by digging around, or you might win them, like in a racing contest, for example, and you build them over the course of the game, and then you modify them to make them stronger, like give them better power or give them better range. I liked the little, like, the hub world, like how it continued to expand, and it just felt very personal, like this small little town with this community of characters. You could go and talk to them, have different interactions with them. And sometimes might have like a little mini mission based on them. And none of anything I'm talking about is new, but at the time, this was my first experience with a game like that. this was, like, I think my first experience with the game that felt open world-ish. It's not as big as, say, something like Fallout 3, but I even like it more than something like Fallout 3 just because of how personal that little world was and all the cute little interactions. I just remember stuff like when there's, like, a giant robot attacking a town and you're going and checking and, like, knocking on the doors and stuff and listening to people talk, which I guess is weird, but, like, I remember one time I checked, like, and I heard something like, Dad, can't you just drop those, like, stupid records and can't we just get out? It's like, no, I'm not letting go of my Frank Sinatra collection. Just little moments like that. I had so much fun with that game. It's one of my favorite games of all time. My favorite game that was just an N64 game was just Super Smash Brothers, the first Super Smash Brothers. Is it as good as later Super Smash Brothers necessarily? No, but at the time, again, that was like just that simple idea, like you were just saying, like just throwing a bunch of Nintendo characters like and having them fight each other. That was just so cool. And I was, like, a big fan of gorillas, so I liked playing Donkey Kong and punching things. Just a simple pleasure in life.
Yeah, we played a ton of that game in college. That was one of those games that we just sat around played for hours. And, you know, there's a lot of memories attached to that game.
Oh, yeah, I remember. And I probably liked Melee even more than it, but I still loved this. And I loved beating, like, that arcade mode that it had. And, like, you know, the feeling, like, the thrill of, oh, my God, I actually beat the Master Hand when I was a little kid.
Right.
And now, you know, and then it became really easy. But that first time, I just remember, like, oh, my God, yeah! And then, you know, just the thrill of winning different characters. I remember being so proud when I got, like, Captain Falcon. Or bummed out when I had an opportunity to get him, and then I lost the fight to him. Like, no, I gotta do this again. So yeah, favorite game overall on there, Mega Man 64. Favorite game that was exclusively on the N64, Super Smash Brothers.
All right, Alicia.
I think I'm gonna go with two answers here too. Do gotta give an honorable mention to Star Fox 64. Just do a barrel roll, iconic. But also just a really fun cast of characters. I love the Star Fox characters. Somehow I've never gotten into like playing more of those games.
Because that was the last really good one. Star Fox 64. They have not been great games after that. And I agree with you. That Star Fox 64 is a really good game.
Yeah. I remember really enjoying that one. And then, I mean, predictable of me, but I gotta say Pokemon Snap. You know, it's... Especially, you know, watching the show at the time, and then you had the photographer character in the Johto anime, and so getting to play as one of the characters from the anime made me just so happy as a little kid. And again, it's one of those, it's a fairly calming game. There's a lot that, you know, it's not really like hidden secrets now, but when you were a kid and you're figuring it out, and you're like, oh, that's what I got to do to get Doug Trio, for example. You have to hit all three of the Diglets to get them to combine. There's just so much wholesome fun in that game. I really enjoyed that one a lot.
And now you have the new version.
Now I have the new one. That's really why I haven't played the new one yet, because I didn't want to play it on the handheld Switch. I wanted to get it hooked up to my TV again and play it on the TV like we used to with Pokemon Snap.
All right. None of you took the two biggest answers, which kind of surprised me. Nobody said Mario 64. Nobody said Ocarina of Time. So, you know, I think I love Mario 64, but Ocarina of Time was the game on that system that blew my mind the first time I played it. And Mario 64 blew my mind the first time I saw it because it looked amazing. But Ocarina of Time was playing an entirely new style of game, it felt like. I mean, it felt like a literal translation of the 2D Zelda games into 3D, but it just felt like so much more of an open world. I have a friend who just adores that game, and whenever we talk about it, you know, I'm just reminded how much that game was just one of those rare experiences where you kind of wish you could almost go back and play that game again for the first time. And I don't think people realize now how good and different and revolutionary that game was. Really, both of those games, Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time, when they first released. It's hard to look back and now contextualize like how different they felt at that time. So I would say Ocarina of Time is probably my favorite game. The game I'm probably most nostalgic for is GoldenEye on that system. And that's really because I just played a ton of that game with friends. We went to the National Beta Club conference because we were in Kentucky and it was in Nashville, Tennessee. And so one of my friends who was our president my senior year was like, hey, come on, let's go to this. And I was like, I don't really want to go to this. I'm not that involved in Beta Club. And she was like, yes, come on. A big group of us are going to this. And I was like, okay. And then I remember one of the guys brought his Nintendo 64 and we're sitting in a hotel room playing GoldenEye on this trip. And then I had one of my best friends, he had his garage was detached from their house, and they had a area in the garage that was completely finished, and they had made into like a TV like room and everything. And we used to sit out there on weekends and just play GoldenEye endlessly, just game after game of it and everything. And you know, we'd have a group of maybe 8 of us, and so we'd cycle people in and out, and it was like, you lost, okay, we're all going to laugh at you, and you have to go sit in the corner where somebody else plays now. And, you know, that sort of, I'd grown up playing games where, like, you know, you'd have one friend, but like most games were, when you talk multiplayer, were 2-player games, you know, so you'd play Contra with a friend or something, and that was a lot of fun. But that was one of the first games where it's like multiple people crammed around, and it was as much fun to watch people play as it was to play yourself. And, you know, and people are yelling at each other and everything. And so like that really became the love, my personal love of sort of couch co-op, couch competitive type games. And, you know, it's just, it was a unique time, a unique experience. And, you know, it's when high school into college, and you know, those are a time period that you never get back and everything. So when you all had enough free time to just sit around endlessly eating pizza and playing video games. But there's actually quite a few good games. The wrestling games on that system were a lot of fun as party games because they were simple enough for anyone to pick up and play. Not like the current wrestling games where you have to spend years trying to figure out how the controls work.
Oh my God, I finally kicked.
Yeah. Which button pins? Is there not a pin button? No, you have to hit like this sequence of 10 different buttons. All right, that does it for this week. Thank you, all 3 of you, for joining me. And thank you for everyone listening. If you want to subscribe to this podcast and you're not already subscribed, you can obviously do so through Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you get podcasts. You can also check us out at salukigames.com, where we have all episodes of this. Plus, we have additional content and everything. We have the backlog of the recording of Playing for Pets that Alicia was mentioning earlier. You can watch some of that. You can see people falling out of their chairs. You can see Alicia updating the controllers in the middle of a Mario Kart race. All sorts of fun things that you can do.
Gosh, it's good to be back to getting roasted every week.
As we noted, we kept it up even when you weren't here. But it is great, Alicia, to have you back. We are starting back to the fall semester, so we'll hopefully get back into a more regular routine of recording these podcasts. We're not entirely sure on what that's going to be yet, so we'll let you know. But it's great to be back and everything. Thank you again for listening. We'll be back soon with another episode.